Hey guys, and welcome to another Palworld video. Today we're going to go over a full guide of how to build your first raid team, some of the pitfalls when it comes to building them, mistakes along the way, and how to not waste some of your best resources. There's actually a very efficient way of getting full 15 out of 15 teams of pals right now with the maximized possible stats. Now I also want to quickly preface this guide before jumping into it that although we're going to follow it in such a way that you do get prepared for ultra difficulty versions of these raids too, at the end of it, you're not pressured into completing any of them on the ultra difficulty. Unless you're a completionist, full min-maxer with several raid teams or fully maxed out pals, even then it may not be worth it and you can still do the normal versions of the same raids and still get the majority of the rewards. Say you're hunting for Bella Noir Libero. Her regular version raid is just level 45. At level 60, you can already easily complete it even with an imperfect team, and you still get the exact same egg out of it. Sure, if you're looking for the achievement and maybe the extra cosmetics, plus maybe some extra drops, you can totally follow that, but it's not necessary for every single one of the raids. So let me show you the setup from top to bottom to waste as little time and resources as possible and pretty much get perfect IVs and passives right out of the gate with the clones you're going to be creating. And it kind of all starts with Yakumos. Get at least 1 or 2 Yakumos that have some of the preferred passives you want on your future pal raid team. For example, in my case, I'm aiming for a full team of Demon God, Diamond Body, Immortality, and Serenity. You can go with others, but in this case, we're going to aim for our Yakumo to have maximum 2 of those available. That's because that will give us our best odds to transfer them without inducing too much RNG. It also goes without saying that this is going to be much simpler after level 70 because once you get to the World Tree map and are able to farm any of the artifact relics, you can decode them at the recycler and now you can get the implants necessary to immediately create a solid Yakumo right out of the gate. In my opinion, the gameplay loop revolving farming any of the ancient artifacts is much simpler. It's much more fun because it involves combat and you get so many other benefits on top too. Resources like holy water and extra implants too, so it's much better to do that than try your luck with Yakumos via the breeding route that we used to do pre 1.0. So with that in mind, I've performed surgery on my top max condensed 4-star Yakumo to give it those 2 passives I now want to transfer to my future raid team. And that future raid team will be made out of Dupins. Dupins are actually a very strong option to have in the second phase of Bella Noir Libero, and they are abundant here in the World Tree map, which is why we're going to use its spawn locations to farm as many of them as possible while our Yakumo is out. And in this case, we can see that some of them are already captured with Diamond Body and also Demon God, but I'm aiming for both that and some decent IVs. If we can take care of the maximum IVs from this stage, we don't have to waste that many IV fruits in the later stages for all of the individual pals. So trust me, in the long run, you're going to thank me. Now, once we're back at the base with these 2, we're going to look for any of the Dupins with some really good IVs. Luckily, we got a couple of them that are very close to max out, so in the green zone. And they also happen to spawn with, the stats that we want, although one of them has something extra we don't want. So on that one, what we can do is perform a surgery. Since Serenity is not disposable, we can pretty much add it to any pal literally from the moment you create the surgery table. So that's going to be 3 out of 4. And another thing you can do from this point on is also add immortality to either of the parents, because the next process will guarantee that the offsprings will get all 4 of them at the same time. Which is why we're now going to move on to the ancient hatchery and the special cake. Yes, directly to them. I know it may sound counterintuitive, but actually if you use this early in the process, you're saving on a lot of time creating useless clones and instead go directly for exactly what you need. That's because both the ancient hatchery that unlocks at level 78 and also the special cake both give you a very high inheritance chance from the parents, not just on all of the skills present, but also on the IVs. So if I were to put them with this setup, as you can see, it doesn't really take too many hatches for us to already get the perfect offsprings. Yeah, some of them will be duds, but you will want to filter and also favorite the ones that are good. In this case, we found a bunch of them, so I'm going to put them with favorite number 1 out of 3. That's going to be the start of our process. And as you can see, all of them have Immortality, Demon God, Serenity, and Diamond Body, so there's no more RNG involved from here. Which is why we're going to now go to the second generation and we're going to do 2 more things so that the future generation now has everything added ready for us, including the actives, the passives, and the IVs. One of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to max out the IVs of the parents. This way, we're going to inherit the 100% IVs on all the future children, so we don't have to waste any future extra IV fruits from this point on. Trust me, this is going to help a ton. So however many you want, since we're very close to 100, it really doesn't take too many to get there. Pretty much 1 or 2 fruits for every single one of the parents. The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to also graft some skill fruits on them, which also have a very high inheritance chance with this setup. We can actually use 2 or possibly even 3, and they still have a very high chance to transfer if you use the ancient hatchery and the special cake. For example, in our case, I want to build a Dupin team that can also work relatively in the first phase of Bella Noir, for which we need the dragon skills, which is why I've grafted some blast cannon and also another skill, which is the dragon laser, on just one of the parents. That is more than enough. Even one parent can transfer both of them at almost all of the other offsprings from this point on. Just make absolutely sure that you select and activate both of them in the skill menu of that pal from this point on, so that it can appear on the offsprings. So now we have both of the parents with level 100 IVs, we have both of them with all of the passives that we want. One of the parents has 2 extra skills I've grafted on them, so we're going to go back at the ancient hatchery with a special cake and let the magic happen. And as you can see, although some of them are duds, there are many in every single batch that pretty much feature everything that the parent had. In this case, 100 IVs, both of the actives and all of the passives at the same time. Not all of them, but still a very good chunk compared to any other breeding way with the old farms. So in this case, we're going to pretty much repeat this until we get 15 clones of these parents, which is going to be our first raid team. If you have enough resources for the rest, you can totally go ahead and aim for a second raid team of 15 Dupins, but for the current time we're going to go with just one of them, which is going to suffice. We have pretty much completed like at least half of what we need for our best raid setup. Which now brings us to the next phase. This is what I call the volume phase. Here we want a ton of clones. We don't care about their passives any longer because we got our full raid team at this stage. The only thing we care now about is volume, because we're going to condense all of these clones into our raid team to reach 4 stars with every single one of them. So every single one of the raid members needs 48 clones to condense at 4 stars, meaning 720 clones in total for a raid team of 15 pals. For this, we're going to use the following setup. We're going to use Greentail fully maxed out in our party, which is going to double the egg production, and we're also going to use the vegetable cake, which is going to double it again. So for every cake, best scenario is that we get 4 hatches, meaning that 720 divided by 4, we're gonna need only about 180 cakes for the whole process, but realistically about 220, because you're not constantly going to get 4. The chance for Greentail is only still 75%. But that is still significantly lower than the 720 cakes we would have needed before 1.0, so in this case, 3 sets of parents at the breeding pens with about 200 or so of these vegetable cakes. Also with a Greentail in my party, we're pretty much going to do all of the collection we need. Also, at all stages, both for this and the early batches we created at the Ancient Hatchery, you're still going to want a Breloha fully condensed for his partner Balmy Weather, which is going to increase the egg production speed by 50%. And at the same time, you will also want to combine that with a Dynamoth in your party, which is going to shorten the time it takes to incubate an egg by 40% when fully condensed. By the way, Dynamoth does stack with the second part of the Babysitter passive, so although the first one will not increase the production speed any longer because the one from Breloha already takes over, the second one that increases the incubation speed by 30% does stack with Dynamoth. In fact, the second portion, the incubation speed buff, even stacks with other ones from other babysitters, so you can theoretically have 2 or 3 babysitter passives in your base and you will benefit from the extra incubation speed. Not from the egg production speed, but the incubation speed can definitely stack 2 or 3 times before you see diminishing returns, so give it a go. I think it's going to be worth it. And from here, the only thing remaining is to grab the clones, as many of them as we can get. A whole family can easily give you like 35 to 39, so almost like 4 stars. but realistically you're going to need a few more on top. So if you have all of this with the maximum speed possible, you can definitely complete this in just a few hours and get a whole team going with max condensation levels. And in this case, it's also very easy, as you can simply press F on the keyboard and mouse, and you're going to have automatically selected all of the clones you don't need to go directly into the condensing process. Point at which you're pretty much done with one of the more challenging parts of the raid setup. Now, unfortunately, the same cannot be said about leveling them up to 80 because you're kind of going to have to make some concessions. If you want to boost the XP rates massively, you're already going to occupy one of the party slots with an Omascul, but that's going to give you a 50% XP rate, which will stack with a plus 50% from the bell accessory that you can also grab early on. So that's going to also give you another 50 on top, which means you're also going to have another party member occupy it for the damage dealer portion, meaning you're left with just 3 spots that you can level at any given time, meaning you're going to have to repeat this process 5 times for the whole raid. Now, with the setup I was running with, it takes me roughly 10 to 15 minutes for a batch of Dupins to reach level 80. You can possibly slash a few minutes if you have more DPS than me, or if you just put more Dupins in your party, assuming that you can maintain the same DPS. And yeah, in this case, that would mean we have to repeat it 5 times, so a total of about 1 hour to 1 hour and a half for the full raid, since we have to repeat this 5 times with my setup. That's because after level 76, 77, there's a big XP requirement for every level from that point on. That's why the alternative to this is to only level these spells to about level 78 or maybe even 79 and then use leveling crystals on them. You can easily get leveling crystals from the Moon Lord. They drop about like 5 on the regular difficulty version, and you can already start this at level like 55 to 60 Farm Moon Lord with the Dualith, because his main ability, the Wind Burst, is absolutely insane against that specific encounter. So theoretically, since you only want to do this for a couple of levels, that's going to be 30 of them, meaning you only have to complete 6 Moon Lords, which goes really quickly, takes like half an hour at most. So you will definitely save maybe more than half an hour by actually getting the leveling crystals from the Moon Lord, rather than staying those 2 extra levels and get the millions of XP you need to level 80. Which brings us to the next phase. That's going to be enhancing. That's going to be the next massive boost in damage, and this is what you're going to need. The most expensive here will be the giant Pal Souls. Everything else is a lot easier to get, and you probably have like thousands of the small, the medium, and the large Pal Souls as it is. You only need 600, 360 for both of these at the same time for a full rate of 15, but you will need 1800 giant Pal Souls for a full raid team of 15, which is actually not that easy to get. That's why at the same time with this, you're going to want to set up a giant Pal Soul farm back at the base, and the best one is, in my opinion, via the disassembly line. We're going to convert the previous breeding farm we were talking about with the vegetable cake and the quadruple spawn to instead get some of these Sylvances going. Every single regular version of the Sylvans, not the alpha versions, the regular versions of the Sylvances, will drop 1 or 2 Pal Souls, which you can boost with lavish hospitality and service-minded, and if you also place a philanthropist on top, it's going to go really quickly with this. It's going to give you like 2, 3, sometimes 4 for the giant Pal Souls. Now, theoretically, we have a couple more things we want to do to max them out, especially if you're going on the ultra difficulty. Unfortunately, this will also be needed. And the next process is to boost every single one of these raid pals to trust level 10. That's going to give another big boost in, of course, stats. And for that, we're going to need kinship peaches. There are 2 main ways to farm for them. One, Moonflower Secret Hideout Pal Expedition is literally one of the best at doing that. It gives you like 5 of them, possibly maybe even more, like 10 every like a couple of hours, so totally worth it if you already have some very high yeah, let's just say firepower pals, which at this stage with the condensing and leveling up you should have with the Dupins we already got. Most of them should be close to 100,000 plus firepower, so at this stage you can definitely send them over there. Another one is to have a kinship peach base. There are multiple locations on the map where these have a chance to spawn every single day. The chance for a kinship peach to spawn in any of these locations is 10% per day, so if you find one, place one base over there and basically just let your pal farm it. After a few in-game days, you're going to notice that he actually got quite a few. So in my case, I went to one of my bases, I only played for like 2 in-game days at this point, and I got 22 kinship peaches, which was a nice supplement over the 100 plus that I already had from some of the other methods. The only other step remaining is to also awaken them. For this, you need the radiant gems specific to whatever element they have. In our case, that would be flame or fire. And we need the extra world tree holy water, which we get very abundantly from farming the ancient artifacts anyway in the world tree map. So you're pretty much covered on that side. You can get hundreds of it in literally just 10 minutes. And that's going to be plenty enough to transform all of that into the awakening crystal you need for all 15 of them. You need 15 awakening crystals. So in that case, it should go rather easily. That means only 150 of that holy water. And if we were to take these guys to the regular version of Bella Noir Libero, of course you don't need to wait up until this stage to take down the regular version of it, but as you can see, ours is already pretty much dominating it. It's absolutely spamming it, and this is already plenty enough if you just want to farm the legendary eggs and then breed Bella Noir until you get the best possible outcome. If you just want her in your party for maybe like the hard team bosses, you don't even need to do most of these processes. Just condensing it and getting closer to like 70, 75 is going to be more than enough with these Dupins to take down Bella Noir Libero on the normal difficulty. On the other hand, if we're going against the ultra version of any of these raids, one raid team will not suffice. You will need at least a second one, possibly even a third one, depending how well you build any of these spells. And yeah, in that case, you're going to want to repeat the process again, but with a different spell, depending on what element the second phase changes to. For example, in the case of Bella Noir Libero, she starts as darkness in the first phase, so dragon damage works really great in the first phase over there. In the second phase, she switches to the ice elemental, which is why we created Dupins. Yeah, fire element over here counters that very nice, and the ultimates on Dupins, the trick show is very strong, deals lots of fire damage, and it's pretty decent at dodging some of her attacks, but not all of them. They can still get hit during the same phase, but it's going to help quite a bit for a fire damage team against the Libero second phase on the ultra high difficulty. That is why in the end game you're going to probably create mixed teams of pals that can actually go in multiple raids. So just to give you an example, I've done something similar but with an Orzerk team previously, and I can use Orzerks, well, both the dragon attack from it, some of them I've grafted on them, just like in the case of Dupin, some of them, like the Meteor Rain, it already has it by default. I can bring Orzerks in the first phase of Bella Noir Liberos, but I can also use it in the first phase of Hartalis to, yeah, get that electric damage going against its water element that it has in the first phase. So that's why grafting those two skills in the beginning was so important. You're going to get so much benefits out of it because you can use the exact same pal for two different types of raids, at least one of the phases for each of the raids. And as you can see over here, this is, by the way, everything on normal difficulty. I haven't changed anything. This is the setup I've been running with. So my party consists of a Chillet, a Cryolinix for, you know, the extra weak point damage, so land for extra damage, and also a Venom Worm, since we're going to aim for the headshots anyway, we're kind of getting the bonuses. But really, if you're looking at the party, we are extremely tanky because we want to attract as much of the aggro from the boss so that our team or our raids don't get absolutely blasted. That's why you're going to want to stack Idiosyncratic, Stronghold Strategist, Vanguard, and Motivational Leader. All of these will actually stack from your entire party, so you pretty much get like the full 5x from every single one of them. You are free to add any other elemental or damage dealer pal on top of what I already shown you. Food buffs before the raid even begins, like the Mamorest carry for the 25% damage increase for the whole raid team, can definitely come in handy. That's going to be a pretty significant difference as well in terms of damage, so you do want them to eat that as well. And in the case of the accessories, I have Warsec Terra Belt, the Sylvagis Emblem, and Dogen Emblem, all for attack up, pal attack up, and a lot of defenses. We really want tons of defenses here. That's because our primary reason of being there is being a tank. We want to absorb as much damage, or at least redirect it towards us. We're not going to do that much damage on the normal difficulty, so maybe even less than what I'm doing right here if you're playing on the multiplayer server. I think that that's a very important thing to say. This is not going to be easy. As you can see, despite having perfect teams, I'm almost like at the end of the timer when I'm finishing off these raids. It's not easy unless you're like bumping up the damage or doing something with the world settings behind the scenes. But at the very least, if you want to complete the ultra versions, this is the way to do it. If you go with the regular versions, then it's going to be much easier and you don't need to invest quite that much into getting a full raid team going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.